mean, I think South Africa was just coming into professional sport. We had our first World Cup in '92, which kind of sparked the idea that maybe you could do this long term. But when I was at high school, I was like every other kiddo. You play sport for fun. Maybe you take it up in club cricket, club sport after school, and you go to university like most high school students in South Africa that are fortunate to have the means to go to university. So I didn't really ever think of cricket as a career back then, but I always say that I stumbled onto a cricket career. But it was a great experience. I mean, I never get. I've made SA schools, and you showed a little bit of talent in terms of what you're doing, but you never know whether you're good enough to play at the highest level. And I think Clive Rice, my parents were very adamant that I got to go to university. They were big on education and driving that. Both my siblings are doctors, so I'm a little bit the odd one out, still trying to catch up with whatever they've managed to do in their academic lives. But yeah, it was like my parents were very determined to make sure that I look after myself and not only think about sport. So and the late Clive Rice actually gave them a call and said, "Hey, I think you should come to the academy," because at that time the National Academy was in Johannesburg at Rao University, as it was called back then. And sort of from there, you sort of improve, you become better, you develop certain skills. And then I started playing for Eastern Province, and one thing led to another. I started doing well and getting recognition, and all of a sudden I found myself on tour as a 20-year-old with a Proteas in Sri Lanka. 1 minute I was getting these guys autographs a year or two ago, and the next thing I was teammates in Sri Lanka. So it was a great experience, but there was no way I was prepared for that. I don't think today or back then players have the interventions that they are today, where you are given an introduction into the importance of well-being, seeing psychologists, personal coaches, whatever you want to call it these days. That wasn't available to us. So, you sort of it was a little bit trial and error. And I remember going there and not knowing if I was good enough, and for a long time I battled that, because I didn't think that I deserved to be there. Even though I did well, I thought I was still young, and I had goals of playing for South Africa at a certain age. It just came probably about 6 years too soon, and I was ill-equipped for it, but that was part of my journey. And I think it made me realize the importance of you actually have to play a lot more of a mentor role as a coach these days than I had when I was coming through the system. I think SAC has definitely played a role. South African Cricket Association, I think they've got some good programs in place. The Player Plus program, that you can access funds to go and improve yourself. That doesn't mean you have to be a university degree. That can be any skill while you're playing. It was incredibly difficult. I mean, what is a young kid making it? You don't know anything about time management. You just played back then. You played earning money, and you start studying, but you never quite follow through with what you're doing, because at that age you don't really know what you want to study, I find, most of the time. So I always knew I wanted to play sport. That was for sure. And I don't think the courses in sport at the time in South Africa were at the level that you probably would have learned. A lot of people that probably work in sport go study commerce degrees or management, whatever. I didn't think there was anything tailor-made for sport that you could sink your teeth into and learn a lot. So yeah, it was very difficult to balance that. But in looking back now, when you are a cricketer, you've actually got so much time on your hands, and it's something that I advocate to our players, that if you have to develop a skill outside of cricket, because once you leave the game, it's a very lonely place. And if you haven't upskilled yourself, I played with some cricketers that basically built their own houses because they learned to do plumbing, building, becoming apprentices to contractors, and they managed to do this and build a house for their families. So there is a lot of time to develop skills, and I'm very big on our players, even if it's little 6-month courses that SACA offer through these various online platforms. And some of them have taken it to heart. There's a couple of guys in our team that actually finished degrees already. So, that's really encouraging to know that if cricket doesn't work out, they have developed another skill, whether that's going to coaching or into another line of work, which they may be passionate about outside of cricket. You're starting to see the advantages of that Player Plus program 10 years later. So now you're starting to see people that have upskilled themselves, whether it's short courses or university degrees. So that's really good to see and encouraging to see, because initially I think at one point there was like less than 20% of cricketers actually upskilling themselves out of the game. I think Saka's gone up to, I'm not sure the exact number, but it's at least 50% of cricketers doing something outside of cricket, which is good. It's changed a lot, and Saka's been really good with that. I think that's one of their benefits and probably their legacies that they leave, that they put a few people through, either short courses or university degrees or whatever that may be, upskilling players. So, I was part of that with Ali Gray. I was probably one of the statistics you're talking about. They didn't have much to his name. So I made a conscious effort 2 years ago to try and search for something that I could be, that would challenge me a little bit and be a little bit different outside of South Africa. So, I quickly realized that, there are a lot of cricketers that retire and looking to do stuff outside of the game or going to coaching. And there's only so many that can coach. So, I decided to find something, and fortunately I found something challenging, and fingers crossed I can finish it this year. And it has been a great ride. I mean, I've learned a lot, in terms of the important things of sport, whether that's leadership, coaching, governance, creativity, innovation. All these things were part and parcel of our course. So it was fantastic. And just the networking you do, the older you are, it's great. As cricketers, you got to realize you earn back to front sometimes. You start at a little, then it slowly increases to a lot, probably to the last between 5 to 10 years. So, there's a lot of years left when you retire. There's some players that are really smart with their money and get some really good advice, but there are others that probably don't. So, and that's probably the majority of cricketers. So that's the importance of having an education, I believe. AB de Villiers and Quinton de Kock, it doesn't matter how much money you have, I believe. You've still got to get out of bed and do something that, sort of gives you a little bit of energy and fire that you're keen to do. I don't believe that you can just play cricket and earn all this money and all of a sudden what you're going to do, just go and fishing and play golf. I don't think that's, I've never been in that position, firstly, but I couldn't think that that's a healthy way to live. You still got to add value and challenge yourself. You've challenged yourself for so long that you just got to find something else to challenge yourself outside of maybe time when you have to spend with your family. So regardless of the amount of money, I just think that you have to do something that gets you out of bed every day. Yeah, it's very difficult, but if you have the drive and ambition and application, anybody can do it. It's not a case that you can't do it. You just have to find something that interests you, I think. Once it interests you, you're going to it's easier to sit in the desk and type away and read. If you're just going to study for studying's sake and not knowing what you're going to be passionate about, then there's no point in really going to study. It's better to probably upskill yourself in, something else. There are very few guys that can actually have the discipline to do it. I'm not saying I'm disciplined. It's very hard for me to find a balance with these things, but it's something that I committed to and, I'm determined to do. So anybody can do it, but it is tough. That's why I'm always an advocate for young players in my team or in our team to do something, because actually a lot of them are quite smart and intelligent. It's just about finding the discipline and the time to chip away at something over a long period of time, because I believe it makes them better cricketers too. They don't throw all the eggs in one basket. They do have a little bit of freedom if this doesn't work out. And it sounds like an oxymoron, but it takes the pressure away. And the more you can take the pressure away from a player, I think the better you'll perform on the field. You'll get better outcomes in the cricket career. So to me, I'm glad that a lot of our young players do it, but a lot of them are probably not taking it on quick enough. And they're probably going to wake up 5 years down the track. I always thought I wanted to go into the medical field. As you can see, both of my siblings are all doctors, so I was probably looking to go into that space, or architecture. Was things I looked at high school to get into, but you know, I wouldn't swap anything that, you know, I've been very fortunate. I mean, you know, that's the thing that you look at. Like, I look at my brother and my sister, but yet my experiences of the world, you know, far outweigh the degrees and the PhDs that they have, you know, and the things I can sit and talk about. There's no way they can talk about, because they haven't built up those experiences traveling and playing the game and meeting people from all walks of life. So there are advantages and massive advantages to what I've done, because if you look at the world today, the world's a lot more global. You know, you can, like we said, you're sitting in London, I'm sitting in Port Elizabeth, and we in a webinar, and that's the way it is today. You know, so these experiences that I've met people like yourself, you know, have given me the opportunity to speak to people on this platform. So I couldn't take anything away, but I do think that you need to plan life after cricket. I do see some older players get very anxious, and the anxiety levels are starting to be heightened now as they're in the back end of their careers, and they haven't done anything. So I mean, that affects their well-being too. And I can see the anxiety that it leaves, and every bad performance, they're worried about the next contract. So, like I said, if they had something to fall back on, it would alleviate all that pressure, and it probably lead to better outcomes on the cricket field. That's the difficult part. I think a lot of it has to do with the upbringing. What happens in the home, and that's why at that age, the relationship coaches have with the parents is massive. You know, no one can predict whether a cricketer will become a superstar. I mean, I've got incredibly talented young cricketers on my team who people believe they'll play for South Africa in 50 test matches, but you just never know. You know, there's so many things that need to align to become a Protea and become a test match player, that it's not as simple as he's talented. You know, the different things, what happens in his personal life. Is everything okay at home? You know, can he handle the pressure? You know, he's been made a big deal of school. Now all of a sudden he's come out of schoolboy structure into where he competes with a 30-year-old, and he's only 20. So it's very difficult to predict who makes it. And often, you know, parents can be sold dreams by a lot of people where actually we should be focusing on the individual a lot more. It's very difficult to do, because as a coach, you've got so many things to worry about, that there needs to be a lot more systems in place, I believe, even at franchise level, even at school level. And that's why I was so encouraged when I went to Pearson High School in Port Elizabeth. I'm not sure if you know that school. The facilities they had for sport, but one of the biggest components they had was their medical center, where there's actually a coach and a psychologist for the kids that play sport to go through for not only the kids but the parents. So I thought that was very forward thinking in terms of a sports school, that they're understanding it's not only about the sport, there's a holistic approach to getting the best out of the kid in his sport and giving him a chance later on in life. But also, if he doesn't make it, they're putting in those building blocks in place to sort of say, hey, you got to find an education if this doesn't work out for you. So yeah, it is tricky. It's not an easy thing. There's not a one size fits all approach, I think. And that's why as a coach, I think that need for coaches to have high emotional intelligence in today's environment is critical, you know, to understand people or to try and understand people and better yourself to understand people's situations, and being very empathetic, you know, is a massive requirement these days, because I think it does begin at home. Actually, when I was in New Zealand, there was this one kid. He came from a little bit of a tough background. I spoke to the high performance manager when we were touring there. It was under 19 World Cup. and I had spent a lot of time, and I asked him, how do they develop young cricketers? And the biggest thing was we just try and meet their friends, what's their home life like. So there was a lot of things that they did that I thought was really interesting that we miss out in South Africa a little bit. We take the player and we ask him all the questions to get to know him, but actually to get to know who he hangs out with and what the home life is like, you probably get to know a lot more of them. So I found that a very interesting concept that they employ. And there's no coincidence that they produce really highly skilled, emotionally intelligent cricketers in New Zealand. It's critically important. I mean, where I grew up in Galvindale, I mean, sport's a massive part of society there. I mean, you have to be intentional about trying to put time into. It's not just a odd practice session. You actually have to go and spend time down there. I think what I've done is I've tried to start playing hockey and spend a lot more time down at the cricket club and hockey club, just to find out like which talented kids are here, and you start having conversations with them, and you find that there's a lot of ambition in those areas to make it in sport, but often you'd find that they don't understand the pathway to the top. They might know that I've made it, or I've sort of managed to play for South Africa, but a lot of them would never know that I grew up there. So when I start telling them about things, I grew up here, I went to that school, and all of a sudden they start looking at you differently. Like, and I've had that happen to me the last couple of months. Was kids are asking, how do you know this place? How do you know? And I point out, no, that's where I used to go and train. Myself, Ashwell Prince, Robin Peterson, Garnet Kruger. I mean, these are all guys that went on to play. We used to, and you're telling them stories now about how you used to go and play school sport, stories of rolling up the mat. And I mean, they play on pitch, on grass surfaces now. We had to go and play on matting wickets, and how we needed to carry it and knock it down with nails, and that's how we played our cricket on during the week for school cricket and club cricket on the weekend. So once they start understanding, like, I mean, everybody's on about storytelling and the power of it, but actually it is quite powerful, for kids, and they do look at you differently, and that's probably the fortunate thing that I have. Again, that's probably my advantage as a coach, is that I could probably understand most of the people on my team because I've seen both sides. I get a little bit of understanding on the kids that go to the sort of private, more established schools, to the kids that comes from a little bit tougher background, not only at home, but schools where there's not a lot on offer for them. So I kind of have that empathetic side for them, yet not to make it too easy for them. I think I always try and tell the kids that is their competitive advantage. It's your toughness. You're gonna learn resilience. You're gonna learn to go again. All these qualities that actually that's what sport's about. That you're living that. You try and encourage them and spin a positive of their background a little bit to them and say that's the quality that's gonna make you. If you really take cricket seriously, that's the quality that's gonna make you the sportsman. That fight that you have, that hunger, that 3 taxis that you have to catch to a cricket practice, that's gonna make you the cricketer you are. And you start telling them that and all of a sudden you can see that they don't see it as a crutch anymore. You just keep reminding them that and start ingraining it in them, because there are the qualities that have gone out of our sport a little bit in South Africa, and those kids definitely play a massive role if you're going to become world champions. Especially in the cricket space, in my opinion. They're a little bit different. They think creatively, and they're a little bit tougher than you think. So just a little bit of guidance, more off the field, and you could probably get fantastic products that come out of those communities. Yeah, I mean, it's not only us that's played. I mean, there's Russell Domingo, who's a coach, South Africa, the Proteas. He's from there. Alistair Coetzee is from there. Has also coached the Springboks. Sia Khaleesi is from our neck of the woods. That he also used to play cricket down there. There's a lot of Bafana footballers. Dane Clayton, he still spends time at the club. So, there are guys that they can look up to. The interesting thing is that I find a lot of parents come to you a lot to ask what's required for their kids to get to the top, and it's the same message. You got to support them. Don't don't put any pressure on them. If they really want to do it, all you have to do is support them. Because I remember I wasn't put under any pressure to become a cricketer from my parents. Ashwell wasn't put under any pressure. But it's something you like. You found that you have a little bit of skill to it, and you may want to take it on as a career later on in life. But I agree with Ashwell. He's fantastic like that. He's got a big heart. Yeah, he can come across as sometimes people think he's angry, but actually he's very approachable when it comes to topics like this on trying to upskill people and just change perceptions on what people are like from that part of the world. And he gives a lot back to that club. And a lot of people have foundations and that's magnificent. It helps a lot of kids out. But I still believe your time is more important to give in that capacity. So we try and like go there as much as we can. We can't go there all the time, but if we get the time, you go to all the junior events that they have down there, or whether it's hockey, football, cricket, and you just try and show your presence, because growing up in Galvindale, you played all the sports. You don't know what you're going to become. I played hockey too. So I've got a lot of friends in that space. So they often ask you just to show your presence and play with the kids and share your experiences with them from time to time. So it's been good. I've really enjoyed being back in PE. I have to say.